NASA has just revealed something even stranger than anyone could have imagined. 3I Atlas, the enigmatic interstellar visitor that stunned astronomers when it entered our solar system, isn't just sitting in orbit anymore. It's moving. Not drifting randomly, not following the predictable arcs of orbital mechanics, but maneuvering, actively, deliberately. The object that shouldn't even be here has now begun a slow, purposeful course correction deeper into the inner solar system. This was never supposed to happen. Interstellar objects don't slow down. They don't stop. And they absolutely don't change direction once captured. But Atlas has done all three. According to NASA's latest tracking data, beginning 3 weeks ago, the object initiated a series of micro-burns, tiny but measurable velocity changes executed in bursts at regular intervals. Each burn adjusted its orbit by just fractions of a degree, but the cumulative effect is staggering. Instead of maintaining the stable 127-year ellipse NASA announced only months ago, Atlas is tightening its path, lowering its perihelion with each maneuver. In plain English, it's spiraling inward, directly toward the Earth-Moon system. Objects don't spiral inward on their own. They either fall chaotically after a catastrophic event, or they're guided. This is guidance. The precision of the course corrections makes that undeniable. NASA's publicly released orbital plots show Atlas's path shifting in perfect increments, each maneuver timed to maximize gravitational assists from Mars and Earth without ever entering a trajectory that would risk collision. This isn't natural drift. This is orbital mechanics at a graduate level, executed flawlessly by something nobody has admitted exists. And here's the part that should have everyone paying attention. If current trends continue, Atlas will perform its final maneuver in just under 18 months. That will place it in a high Earth orbit, a position almost identical to our own geosynchronous satellite belt. A Harvard orbital dynamics specialist put it bluntly: this is the exact profile you'd use if you wanted to park a spacecraft in Earth's backyard without drawing immediate attention. What's driving it? NASA's official statement uses the word anomalous 5 separate times but offers no explanations. Behind closed doors, engineers are scrambling to model the energy requirements. Even the smallest velocity changes require enormous power over time. The thrust pattern looks like low-output, high-efficiency propulsion, something like an ion drive. But the acceleration intervals don't match any known technology. Some researchers suggest we may be looking at field propulsion, manipulating space itself rather than expelling mass. Meanwhile, amateur radio astronomers monitoring Atlas's transmissions have reported something chilling. The object's signal has shifted from periodic data bursts to something new: directional beams. Instead of broadcasting omnidirectionally, Atlas is now sending narrow, high-powered signals aimed at specific points in space, sometimes toward Earth, sometimes toward deep space. SETI analysts call it targeted handshake mode, a pattern used by theoretical probes attempting to establish secure communications. The bursts are encrypted, or at least encoded in a way no one on Earth has been able to decipher. Thermal imaging adds another layer of mystery. Since beginning its maneuvers, Atlas's internal heat signature has doubled. It's producing more energy than ever before, not from sunlight, but from something inside. The temperature peaks at 3 distinct points along its structure: engines, reactors, or something stranger. Natural objects don't warm up when they change course. Then came the deployment. 2 weeks ago, at least 15 small objects separated from Atlas, spreading into a symmetrical ring around the main body. Each maintains perfect formation at a fixed distance. When one moves, the others adjust. The geometry matches no natural phenomenon. Military analysts call it a screen, a defensive or sensor array meant to detect or deflect approaching objects. And that may soon matter. Intelligence leaks indicate multiple nations, the US, China, and a joint European-Russian consortium are accelerating plans to intercept Atlas. These aren't simple flybys. These are missions designed to rendezvous, dock, or board. But here's the nightmare scenario. Nobody knows how Atlas will react. If it's a probe, it might ignore us. If it's a sentry, it might interpret an approach as an attack. In war games quietly run by defense departments, even a passive probe could pose catastrophic risks if it carries defensive countermeasures or self-destruct protocols. The legal chaos is unprecedented. The Outer Space Treaty says no nation can claim celestial bodies. But Atlas isn't a celestial body. Does it belong to whoever built it? Or is it, as some argue, effectively territory of an alien civilization? Can we land on it? Can we mine it? Can we shoot at it? There is no answer. The United Nations has called an emergency session to establish an interstellar object engagement framework, but nothing binding has emerged. Meanwhile, governments are acting unilaterally. Public reaction has gone from fascination to anxiety to something approaching panic. Social media is flooded with live-tracked orbital plots and doomsday speculation. Religious leaders are issuing statements about watchers and messengers. Economists are warning that if Atlas represents advanced technology, the nation that seizes it could leap centuries ahead, destabilizing global power balances overnight. And all the while, Atlas moves. Its new trajectory will bring it within 12 million miles of Earth on its next pass, closer than ever before. At that distance, even backyard telescopes will be able to see it. For the first time in history, every human being will be able to look up and see, with their own eyes, something not of this world maneuvering in our skies. The thing nobody tells you is that once an object enters a stable Earth orbit, it's no longer just passing through. It's here, permanently. We've crossed the threshold from observation to interaction, whether Atlas is a probe, a sentinel, or something we can't yet imagine. It's making a choice to come closer. The next 18 months will determine whether this is the dawn of contact, or the start of something much darker. If you want to follow every update as Atlas approaches Earth orbit, and whatever happens after that, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This story isn't just history in the making. It's the story that will define the future of our species. Within weeks of NASA's announcement about Atlas's maneuvers, something even more extraordinary happened. For the first time, the object responded to a human signal. A joint NASA essay team beamed a simple mathematical message toward Atlas from the Deep Space Network. Prime numbers, pulses of light, and binary sequences. For 4 days, there was no reply. Then, without warning, the object's transmissions changed. A new burst of data emerged. Not random, not noise, but a pattern that mirrored the structure of the message Earth had sent. It was as if Atlas had been waiting for a formal handshake before answering. The contents of the returned signal remain classified. Official statements refer to it only as complex and non-natural, but leaks from within the SETI community describe it as containing nested structures, data within data, like a cosmic Russian doll. Some experts believe it could be a star map. Others think it's instructions for establishing a more stable communication channel. Whatever it is, Atlas didn't just acknowledge Earth. It sent something back. And the timing of that reply couldn't be more critical. The object's trajectory now predicts a synchronized approach with Earth's orbit in just 16 months. On that date, Atlas will pass through a corridor of space used by dozens of active geosynchronous satellites, communication relays, weather platforms, military assets. The potential for interference, intentional or accidental, is enormous. Some satellites are already being repositioned to avoid potential disruption. Others are being hardened against electromagnetic pulses. Meanwhile, intelligence analysts have noticed another chilling trend. Since the deployment of Atlas's smaller companion objects, radio noise in certain deep space bands has spiked. Entire regions of the sky are now being painted with high-frequency beams coming from Atlas. One former Pentagon engineer described it bluntly. It's mapping. That's what you do before you move. Thermal readings from the smaller objects show each is running hotter than expected, as if they have active power sources of their own. When plotted over time, their movements create shifting lattice-like structures around Atlas, like an ever-reconfiguring web. Some researchers think this is a sensor grid. Others suspect a communications relay, or worse, a defense perimeter. And the deeper astronomers dig into sky survey archives, the stranger it gets. Another 14 objects once thought to be dead asteroids have been reclassified as candidate artificial interstellar bodies. Many display slight but consistent deviations from expected paths. 2 of them, previously dismissed as debris, have now been observed emitting faint electromagnetic pulses at regular intervals. It's as if Atlas is not a lone outpost, but a hub, and the rest of the network has been here all along. The implications are staggering. If true, Earth is not just being watched from one object, but from an entire distributed system spanning millions of miles. One planetary defense scientist put it this way: "We're like ants on a sidewalk, realizing the cars parked nearby aren't empty. Someone's been sitting inside them the whole time." Public discourse is fracturing under the weight of the revelations. Some people see Atlas as a herald, a peaceful observer that has come to study us or guide us. Others see it as a sentinel, a guardian placed here to keep humanity from reaching too far. Conspiracy theories are proliferating. Social media platforms are filled with alleged decoded versions of Atlas's signal, claiming everything from doomsday warnings to promises of interstellar salvation. Governments are quietly deploying psychological operations teams to manage public reaction and prevent mass panic. The military dimension continues to escalate. 2 classified missions, one American, one Chinese, are rumored to be on fast-track launch schedules. Both are described as contact probes, though insiders say one or both could carry active countermeasures. In other words, weapons. A European Union security analyst warned that the window for first contact could also be the window for first conflict. And then came the blackout. On a clear night over the Pacific, amateur astronomers watching Atlas reported a sudden, coordinated dimming. Within seconds, all 15 companion objects vanished from visual observation. Their heat signatures dropped. Their radio transmissions ceased. For 48 minutes, Atlas and its entire formation went dark. When it reappeared, its formation had shifted, not randomly, but into a tighter, denser configuration. Analysts call this defensive posturing. No one knows what triggered it. Inside NASA, a quiet crisis meeting was convened. Officials from the Pentagon, the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, and representatives from multiple allied nations gathered in a secure room. A leak from that meeting described a single sheet of paper with a single sentence written at the top. "We may not be in control of first contact." As Atlas continues its slow inward spiral, Earth is hurtling toward a moment of decision. Do we reach out again, risking misinterpretation? Do we send a crewed mission, risking escalation? Or do we watch and wait, hoping Atlas reveals its intentions before it arrives? Every scenario carries existential stakes. The thing nobody tells you is that our species has always imagined first contact as a distant event, a radio signal from a far-off star, a future problem for future generations. Instead, it's here, now, unfolding in real time, in our skies. We're not dealing with a message across light years. We're dealing with an object inside our own gravitational well, maneuvering toward us, responding to our signals. And Atlas is still accelerating. If you want to follow the next phase of this story, the transmissions, the maneuvers, the missions, subscribe now. Because by the time Atlas reaches its final orbit, the world you're living in today may no longer exist. Within days of the blackout event, ground-based radar at Arecibo 2, Goldstone, and the Chinese Deep Space Array picked up something impossible. Atlas wasn't alone anymore. Faint returns showed a second object, much smaller but following a mirrored trajectory, approaching from far beyond Neptune. It had been invisible to optical telescopes, cloaked by the sun's glare and its own faint albedo. Only when it crossed a beam from Earth's radar did its presence become undeniable. NASA's official statement called it an additional anomalous mass. Internally, scientists began referring to it as ECHO, same composition signature, same impossible titanium-vanadium alloy, same stepwise deceleration pattern. It wasn't just arriving, it was synchronizing. Analysts believe it's timing its arrival to coincide with Atlas's entry into high Earth orbit. If Atlas is a hub, ECHO is a relay. If Atlas is a probe, ECHO is the mothership. And then came the pulses. Deep Space Network receivers monitoring Atlas's transmissions began to detect a new kind of signal. Not data bursts, but pulses timed to Earth's own rotation. Every time our planet completed one spin, Atlas responded with a sequence of narrow beam bursts. It's not broadcasting at random anymore. It's syncing with our day. In other words, it's watching. The smaller companion objects around Atlas have begun moving independently. Instead of a static ring, they're now traveling along their own tiny orbits, weaving intricate Lissajous patterns around the main body. When plotted, those paths form a three-dimensional lattice of intersecting lines, a geometry eerily similar to the grid coordinates of low Earth orbit. Some have speculated they're simulating our satellite infrastructure. Others think they're scanning or mapping orbital debris fields in preparation for something. And for the first time, there's visual evidence. High-resolution imagery from the James Webb Space Telescope, leaked by an insider, allegedly shows angular structures on Atlas's surface. Long, straight ridges, hexagonal panels, something like antenna arrays. No natural comet looks like this. No asteroid ever built a hexagon. Governments are no longer hiding their concern. Quietly, but unmistakably, militaries are mobilizing. In the United States, Space Command has shifted to enhanced observation posture. China has moved its heavy-lift Long March fleet into standby for a launch window later this year. Russia has reactivated its dormant Cosmos Sentinel project, rumored to involve autonomous interceptors. The European Union has drafted a resolution calling for a no-first-contact moratorium, but not all member states agree. The debate has spilled out of scientific circles and into public life. School children are taught emergency space awareness drills. Financial markets have built entire futures indices on Atlas exposure. Tech billionaires are funding private missions, arguing that governments are moving too slowly. An international consortium has even begun assembling a civilian listening array in Greenland to decode Atlas's signals without state interference. Then, the second blackout. This time, it wasn't just Atlas going dark. For 3 minutes, the entire high-frequency radio spectrum over North America experienced a coordinated spike of interference. Aviation radios failed. GPS signals flickered. Cell towers dropped calls. When it ended, everything returned to normal. Atlas's signals resumed, but on a new frequency band, one used by Earth's own military satellites. A senior engineer at JPL described the mood inside the control room. It's like watching something knock politely at the door and then start testing the lock. In classified briefings, defense officials now speak openly about contingency scenarios. One option is to send a grazing probe, a small craft designed to pass near Atlas and collect data without approaching too close. Another, more controversial, is a hard intercept, a kinetic impactor launched under the guise of scientific exploration, but designed to test Atlas's response to aggression. Critics warn that any hostile action could trigger consequences we can't even imagine. Meanwhile, in observatories around the world, a third pattern is emerging. Dozens of faint objects, previously catalogued as background stars, have shifted slightly in position over the last 6 months. When plotted, their motions trace out arcs converging on the inner solar system. They're dim, they're distant, and they're all coming in on parallel vectors. If they're natural, it's the biggest coincidence in astronomical history. If they're not, then Atlas and Echo may just be the first arrivals of something far larger. The thing nobody tells you is that we're already past the point of first contact. Contact isn't a handshake, a landing, or a broadcast on primetime TV. It's this. It's a slow encirclement. It's an intelligence reaching into our backyard, testing our systems, shaping our reactions. By the time we see it clearly, it's already here. At its next perihelion, Atlas will come within 9.8 million miles of Earth, closer than any interstellar object in recorded history. Amateur telescopes will see it as a moving star, bright enough to cast a faint shadow. The second object, Echo, will pass behind the Sun and reappear at almost the same distance. The formation of smaller objects will align into a new configuration, like beads sliding into place. No one knows what happens after that. Do they stop and orbit? Do they descend? Do they open a channel and speak? Or do they simply continue whatever they've been doing, ignoring our panic while they work? One anthropologist studying first contact myths summed it up. We've always imagined being Columbus. We've never imagined being the Islanders. If you want to follow what happens as Atlas and Echo close in, the signals, the maneuvers, the hidden objects arriving behind them, subscribe now. Because in less than 2 years, everything you thought you knew about life on Earth may no longer apply.